The year was 1940, and we were deep in the forests of northern France, part of a Wehrmacht unit pushing through the French defenses. The speed of our advance had been staggering, and the blitzkrieg tactics were proving to be as effective as our commanders had promised. But there, in the dense woods, the battle was far from easy. The morning was shrouded in mist, the kind that clung to your skin and made everything seem damp and cold. The trees were tall and thick, their branches forming a canopy that blocked out much of the weak sunlight. As we moved cautiously through the forest, every rustle of leaves or snap of a twig made us tense, our fingers hovering over the triggers of our rifles. We knew the French forces were somewhere ahead, hidden in the dense undergrowth, waiting for us. The quiet was unsettling, the kind that made you feel like the enemy was watching your every move. My breath hung in the air in small clouds as I tried to stay alert, my heart pounding in my chest. Suddenly, the silence was shattered by the crack of rifle fire. Bullets whizzed past us, thudding into the trees and the ground around us. We hit the dirt, taking cover behind the nearest trees, our eyes scanning the dense foliage for any sign of movement. The French had set up a defensive position, and they were well hidden. Our officer shouted orders, and we returned fire, the forest erupting into chaos. The gunfire echoed through the trees, and the once serene forest became a battlefield. I could hear the shouts of my comrades, some giving orders, others crying out in pain as they were hit. We tried to advance, moving from tree to tree, but the French were well entrenched, their fire pinning us down. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of gunpowder, and the mist made it even harder to see. I could barely make out the shapes of the enemy in the distance, their rifles flashing as they fired at us. Despite the confusion and fear, we pushed forward. There was no turning back, our orders were clear, and we had to break through. I kept my head low, moving cautiously, trying to avoid the bullets that seemed to come from every direction. The ground was uneven, and the thick undergrowth made it difficult to move quickly. As we pressed on, the fighting grew more intense. We threw grenades into the enemy positions, trying to flush them out, the explosions sending debris and dirt flying into the air. The noise was deafening, and the ground shook beneath our feet. I could feel the shock waves of the blasts in my chest. We finally managed to break through the French line, forcing them to retreat deeper into the forest. The fighting was fierce in close quarters, the kind of combat where you could see the fear in the eyes of the enemy. There was no time to think, only to react, as we fought hand to hand in the thick of the woods. Eventually, the French pulled back, retreating towards their main defensive positions. We were exhausted, our uniforms soaked with sweat and dirt, our faces smeared with grime. But we had succeeded. We had pushed the French back, though the cost had been high. Many of our comrades lay wounded or dead in the forest, their sacrifices a grim reminder of the price of war. As the day ended and the fighting subsided, we regrouped, taking stock of our losses. The forest was eerily quiet once more, but it was no longer the peaceful place we had entered that morning. It was now a graveyard, a place where lives had been lost in the relentless march across France. We knew that this was just the beginning. The French were resilient, and the battle for France was far from over. But we were determined to press on, driven by the belief that victory was within our grasp. The memories of that day in the forest would stay with me, a reminder of the brutal and unforgiving nature of war.